Howdy CEOs, and welcome to Pear Talks Prosperous Universe. Today we are going to be tackling one of the most sought after new player questions. Starting out. I know, I already made a starting out video, but I'm no longer a new player, so get ready, buckle up, because this is going to be quite a big video as we tackle every single starter package and my opinions about them. We're going to talk about good starter planets to begin your adventure with, and the pitfalls that new players can fall prey to. This is an advanced guide in the sense that it's comprehensive. So I'll give you chapters, you can skip where you want. But without further ado, let's not waste any more time, and let's just dive right into the first package on this list. So the first package is Drinking Water and Ration Producer. You honestly can't go terribly wrong with this starter package. I'd probably rate it like on the A scale of starter packages because everyone needs to eat and drink and clothe themselves. So it's actually a fantastic starter package to dive into. But let's go in a bit further. So what would be a good starter spot to set up on? Well, like I said, it lives and dies by H2O. So not only do you need to find a planet with H2O on it, but you also need to find a planet with high fertility on it. Fertility can be found in the planet screen where it says soil fertility. If your planet has negative fertility, don't worry, you can actually still produce goods there. It'll just take longer. Not a lot longer, but long enough. I actually did some quick math so you don't have to, but like a planet, for instance, like Prometer, with a high fertility at 40%, can produce beans in about 6 hours and 44 minutes, while a planet like Katoa, with a low fertility at negative 16 fertile, soil can produce beans at about 7 hours and 55 minutes. So honestly, that hour, depending on your situation, it might not matter that much. So for the benefit of those that are completely new to this game, the production chain works by extracting H2O out of a planet by using a rig or a collector, depending on the state of the element, if it's in a liquid or gas form. And then you take the H2O you got and you build a farm and water the ground with the H2O you produced. Next, you can use a variety of recipes to get various veggies that you grow out of the farm to produce these rations from a food processor. Or you can take the H2O itself and throw it directly into a food processor to produce drinking water. So my top 5 picks for this start would include the first one being Prometer. It's an obvious pick with a 36.40 water base and 40% fertility. It is undoubtedly the galaxy-wide tier 1 consumable production planet. If you want to get into this trade, start here. The second planet on this list, if Prometer is a bit crowded for you, or the Hortus CX has way too much supply of these goods, would be to come over to Nemesis. It's got plenty of H2O at a water base of 30.19 units and a fertility rating of 23%. It's parked right next to the Benton CX, and it has other options such as producing oxygen if you feel so inclined. If you have friends in the Moria space, setting up on Verdant isn't a bad option either. It's a bit of a walk from the Moria CX at 5 jumps away, but it'll give you plenty of H2O at a water base of 36.67 units at 27% fertility. And it also has superior oxygen reserves on the planet as well. However, I will warn you that this planet is a bit out of the way for newcomers. Might be better mid-game setup if you're looking to expand, but it's still a good option if you play your cards correctly. Now, if you want to settle in Antar's space, Harmonia isn't a bad option. It's on Antar's doorstep, and it's a quiet little slice of the galaxy to set up your food production facilities on, sitting at a water base of 25.71 units and a fertility rate of negative 10%. And finally, I might recommend Katoa. Not only is it in the Benton CX system, it's sort of a jack of all trades and the master of none. At a water base of 14.70 units of H2O and a negative 16% fertility, it's an A+ location and a solid B- in production, which makes it a solid B in my books. If you're thinking of going the full self-sustainability route, this might be the one planet to accomplish said goal. An honorable mention that deserves to be on this list, and that one planet that I think more experienced players will agree belongs on this list, and that is Procyon. It's like the little water planet that could. It doesn't have super water reserves at only about 8.40 units, but it's also got 22% fertility, and it's only one jump away from the Benton CX. It's also got oxygen and a decent-sized limestone deposit, making it an opportunistic location if you are getting into the construction prefab market. Now, some bonus material I will speak on here is the surprising use of water in the endgame. Something to consider if you want to set yourself up for success is that water will be used to pop out carbon. Carbon is made using water to make carbon-based plants and material of various types. Then this will be thrown into an incinerator to produce carbon. But carbon in conjunction with oxygen and hydrogen will also be used to make a lot of the refined metal in the endgame. So having a planet with H2O and some oxygen is something to be considered. Speaking of metal producers, we're now on to the second starter package, the metal producer. I would rate this start as a solid D for beginners. It's low volume, medium margins, make it quite a bad start for newcomers if you don't know what you're doing. This type of work requires a lot of mixing and matching to produce something useful, but then again, it will become the building block for a lot of the endgame stuff. So I would give it a solid S tier for the mid-game build, but as a start, just don't do it. But if you're still not going to listen to me, that's okay. You've only hurt my feelings a little bit. So if you aren't going to be stopped by my account, let me at least tell you some metals to pursue. Aluminum would be my first choice. It's a great tier 1, 2, and 3 metal that can be produced in a wide variety of things from B-fabs to ship components and is used to produce silicon of all things. If aluminum isn't your thing, I might go after iron, which is used to produce a variety of B-fabs and other components. And it can be combined with oxygen to produce steel, which is used to produce tier 2 consumables. So with all that being said, let's talk about some of the planets you could pursue with this start. Deimos in the Antares system is probably the main aluminum producing planet for the galaxy. With an aluminum deposit of 28 units, you won't run dry of your supply of aluminum ore. But it also has a solid supply of oxygen and H2O, making it the perfect planet to instantly start producing refined aluminum metal if you set up correctly. Also in the Antares system is the planet Phobos. It also is a great 2 for the price of 1 planet in that it has a hefty silicon deposit at 21 units. But also some amazing bonuses to this planet is the fact that it is a fertile planet that has oxygen, iron, and H2O, making it the ideal to set up a sizable base and start producing refined metal off of. It's an ideal setup for this planet would be to start as a farmer, and then get some liquidity, set up the incinerator, and then start creating refined metal from the FeO, carbon, and then oxygen. I know this is number 3 in the list, but honestly these two planets are so close to being similar to each other, it just makes sense to lump them together. In the Moria system, we have 2 planets, Circe and Vallis, that will get you started on iron production. If you don't mind traveling, 4 jumps away from the Benton CX is a planet called Etherwind. Although it's got poorer fertility than something like Phobos, it's fertile nonetheless. The big thing going for it is the massive deposits of SiO, oxygen, and H2O, making it an extremely ideal planet to produce silicon off of. After navigating the map for a bit to find another planet that might be ideal, I honestly had to start getting creative because frankly, as I said, metal production is more of a mid-tier sport. It's not really well left to beginners. But I think I found a planet that would sort of serve as a subsequent purpose to the metal production. One of the things that basic construction prefabs need is limestone. So if you get out your mortar and pestle and combine limestone with a variety of metals, you will produce basic prefabs that people will need to construct their base with. So Proxion in the Benton system isn't a bad bet. With positive fertility, H2O, oxygen, and a nice supply of limestone, it's a planet that could be shipped refined metal to produce basic prefabs. Alright, the third starter package. If you honestly thought it was going to get better from here, I have news, it isn't. If you thought metal producer was bad, dear me, don't even get me started on the carbon farmer. Now, if you think I'm just going to rag on every start from here on out, no, but I'm talking about good starts for beginners. People that don't have super intimate knowledge about this game. See, the thing is, carbon fibers are absolutely important. They are probably one of the most critical components in a production chain. But they are like the base chemicals for a lot of other cool stuff. By itself, carbon isn't super remarkable. It would be cooler if it just didn't take so damn long to produce, which makes it one of the slowest starts in this game. But here's some plans to consider if you wanted to head for a carbon start. At one of the higher water bases in this game at 42 units, Ether Wind suffers from low fertility, but the carbon fiber really doesn't care. It's going to burn the plants it makes anyway, and the production swings that it does to make plants versus the amount of carbon it's producing makes sense in the long run. So with only 4 jumps away from the Benton system, setting up an Ether Wind puts you on the fast track to producing silicon with a high oxygen supply and silicon ore ready to be mined right out of the ground. I know we spoke about this planet before, but at a 40% fertility with a water base of 36.40 units, Prometer is the ideal start for a carbon farmer. It's got oxygen to catalyze with the ore you buy from the market, making metal down the road easier to produce. The next on this list is Nemesis. With an H2O base of 40.19 units and only 4 jumps away from the Benton system, it's got the oxygen as well to help you with your carbon start. With only 1 jump away from the Antares system, we can't forget that Deimos is the aluminum-producing planet of the galaxy, and it doesn't get that way without copious amounts of carbon that farmers can produce from its healthy H2O and oxygen supply. One thing that we haven't spoke about, but I will include in this series, is a plastic start. A planet that can facilitate this and gives you lots of options for paths to take with this is Gibson. Situated 2 jumps from Benton, it has iron ore, hydrogen for plastic, oxygen, and of course H2O and fertility to take your carbon farmer to lots of different routes. The next starter package that I'm going to speak on is the plastic producer. Although this start requires carbon, it doesn't hang its hat solely on the production of carbon. Instead, it uses carbon to produce 2 widely used plastics in this game, polygranulate and polyethylene. These 2 puppies are used in so many recipes, it's insane. Making them is a highly sought after product and a better start than simply producing carbon straight up. As to which one to produce? Well, just taking a look at the recipe book here, I would say that they are equal in value. A lot of buildings require plastic as construction material, and both plastics have various paths to go that route. I'd say that PG might have the slight edge in that it can be slapped together to make tier 2 plastic items, which are used to make ship parts, while polyethylene has a simple recipe to produce tier 1 consumables, the overalls. So here's some planets to consider if you want to head this route. If you wanted to head down the polyethylene route, Gibson isn't a bad choice. With only 2 jumps from the Benton system, it's got all the hydrogen and H2O you'll need to start popping out polyethylene to ship it to the market for sale. However, one thing to consider with polyethylene is that it leans more heavily on the hydrogen than the H2O, so keep that in mind when building your base. If you wanted to head down the polygranulate route, there is only one really good starter planet in the game, and that would be Umbra. And even then, it's probably not the best planet to get this job done. Your main issue is that you're going to have to import either carbon or the foodstuffs to the planet to incinerate into carbon. But it is in the Benton CX system, so importing that shouldn't be a huge issue. Actually, I might even say it'll be quite a non-issue. The nice thing about foodstuffs and incinerators is that there's a lot of variety and options available to you to choose from. The only downside is that a lot of the foodstuffs can be pricey at times. There isn't a huge reason why somebody would ship their foodstuffs to the market, honestly. Obviously, to make money, but foodstuffs are what we might consider to be like a quick intermediate product. Foodstuffs like beans and grain are usually burned or processed into something else. So foodstuffs on the market, like these items, are there because players selling them know that they can sell them at a margin greater than if they process them. However, this is the part of the video will be cut short because really these are the only 2 planets that I recommend. There are a lot of other planets that do great with these products, but none of them are starter planets in the sense that they don't land in what scientists call the Goldilocks zone. See, the galaxy has a lot of planets, but some of these planets have high gravity, high and low atmospheric pressure, or high and low temperatures. In order to build bases on these planets, you are going to need other resources that the starter package just simply can't afford you. So for now, this part of the video will end. Now, on to the next package, which is the Constructor. And I would definitely say that this is the peacock of the group in the sense that it is probably the most unique start in that it's like the chemist's start. It takes a lot of materials and combines them into various building components, or what is known as basic fabrications, or BFABs. In my opinion, this is one of the most advanced starts in the game, but I would also say it's one of the more interesting starts, and dare I say, one of the more social starts in the game. I know a lot of BFAB people typically are like merchants. Obviously, they can sell their BFABs on the market, and they do, but corporations might have their own in-house BFAB constructor. The thing too about BFAB constructors is that they don't focus on one product. They might produce some basic bulkheads one day, and then maybe due to demand or various other market forces produce basic structural elements the next. The thing about BFABs is that the demand for the product is slow. However, it never runs out. All the buildings in this game wear out and require these products to fix these buildings up. So while their volume traded on a day might be in the thousands, the margins for these products are extremely high. So what planets do I recommend for the start? Well, dear me, it would honestly be a really tough list, but I can think of a few options. Namely, you're going to need access to a good supply of basic metal ore, limestone, or hydrogen water. So let's start this list. Procyon isn't a bad choice with a good supply of limestone, oxygen, 22% fertility, and water. It would make a great planet if you don't mind hauling the hydrogen or metal used to produce the BFAB you're looking to produce. It's also only one jump away from the Benton CX, making it an ideal choice for the number one spot. Second on this list is Moten. With a good supply of limestone, iron ore, negative 20% fertility, and a small supply of water and oxygen, this would be the ideal choice to set up a fully functioning base that could pop out basic structural elements. The bonus to this planet is that it's in the Moria CX system, which makes it really deluxe. The next one on this list is Deimos. With only a short jump away from the Antares CX, this planet has aluminum ore, oxygen, water, and a negative 34% fertility, making it the ideal planet if you don't mind importing the limestone. One thing to keep in mind about everything limestone related is that you might think to yourself, well, oh, Pear, no sweat. I don't mind, importing smelly old limestone. But you might think differently when you start to scale your operation and realize that limestone is a heavy boy at 2.73 tons. Meaning that you can only ship 183 units of limestone on a full load. While that still seems like a lot, if you start consuming limestone at 20 a day, these trips will start to add up on fuel costs and the wear and tear on your ship. That's one major thing I've learned over time. I've stopped looking at what and where I can find the things to produce my other things and instead focused on how much everything weighs. While I can import hydrogen, it has a volume of 1 meter cubed, meaning that I can only ship 500 metric tons of it. And at a consumption rate of 50 a day, sometimes it's more feasible for me to find a planet I can produce the heavy stuff on and import in massive quantities the light stuff. All this to say, things do be heavy, and heavy stuff is expensive to fly into space. Fourth on this list would be probably Phobos. Within the Antares CX system, this planet has a lot of good options such as silicon ore, iron ore, oxygen, and water to produce a lot of BFABs. And with that silicon, you can actually produce some basic transparent apertures by turning the silicon into glass. It also has a negative 20% fertility, meaning that you can produce carbon on it. And it isn't great, but it's fairly good. Gibson isn't a bad choice either, with only 2 jumps away from the Benton system. It's got a negative 24% fertility, oxygen, iron, and water. And the nice little bonus is the hydrogen, meaning that it's kind of the jack of all trades, master of none planet, that if you are patient, you can see the fruits of your labor pay off. Finally, I have saved the best starter package for last, the fuel producer. With decent margins and literally an unlimited demand, producing fuel, in my opinion, is one of the best starts in this game. When fully ramped up, this start can continue to expand fairly easily horizontally and produce great quantities of fuel. Because you can ship around 8,000 units per trip, if you find a method of getting recipe resources off the local market, you can save on time and costs and making a profit quickly and easily. And you've probably guessed what my first starter planet I'm going to recommend for this is, and that is my home planet of Katoa. Located in the Benton system, Katoa has the galerite and ammonia needed to produce STL fuel. And as an added bonus, it has H2O, making it the perfect planet to bolster your self-sufficiency by producing drinking water or rations if you feel inclined. Because this planet actually does have a negative 16% fertility rate. If you are looking for the ultimate self-sufficiency planet start, Katoa is definitely a good choice. Now, funny enough about this list, even though it's one of the best starts in my opinion, it doesn't have a lot of good starting planets. But the planets it does have are okay. And one of those just okay planets is Hermes. See, FTL fuel, while needed, isn't burned as much as STL fuel. There's a lot of logic as to why, but I won't get into that. Essentially, if you wanted to set up a base in Hermes to get the job done of producing FTL fuel, you could do it. But its location is 5 jumps away from the Antares space, and it's only got one resource on it, HE3. So honestly, it's not super great. However, never fear, there is also not a really good option number 2. If collecting HE3 out of the atmosphere doesn't appeal to you, you can always break out your chemistry set and make it yourself from tectosilicite. The recipe isn't great, and honestly, I wouldn't recommend this for a long-term setup. But if you're looking to get into the FTL game early, refining TS into HE3 isn't a bad option. And then all you need is the hydrogen. Oh, and I forgot to mention the planet. The planet's called Avalon. The best part about it is it's located in the Hortus CX system, which is nice. It's also got like SCR and MAG, which, don't worry, are completely useless. Like, how useless? Well, like, they're used to make things, but I don't even know, like, they're like the corner pieces to your puzzle, and like, you still don't even have the box as to what the puzzle looks like, so don't even bother. I don't even know what they do. I'm too lazy to explain it, even if I did know what they do, because that's how pointless they are. Anywho, another planet to consider on this list would be Umbra. With a healthy dose of hydrogen at 11.40 mineral base, it makes an excellent quiet spot in the galaxy in the Benton CX system to set up your fuel refining shop. For the sake of this video, I'll end this list there. Well, I've definitely blown through a lot of information with you folks, and I hope you've appreciated the insight into some of these starts. If any of this nerdy talk interests you and you'd like to get involved in a corporation with other people, try out our corporation, Nascent Mercantile. We'd love to have you. Anywho, thanks for all your support, guys, and until next time, see you later.